Welcome to Certainty for Uncertain Times. My name is Lauren, and if you've been here for a bit, welcome on back. And if you're new here, I'm so glad that you clicked on this video today. My entire goal with this channel is to help you navigate through the chaos that has been forced upon us, as well as figuring out how to make sense of the clown world that we are all living in. And of course, the big part of it is tying together that we are living in the last days. Bible prophecy is happening, and Jesus is about ready to return to snatch up his church, harpazo, get us on out of here so that the final 7 years of this age can commence. And while I'm waiting for that as a Christian, the crazies on the other side are waiting for that as well, because they're man of the hour. They're ready for him to take the stage. So with that said, I want to jump into the weekly wrap up, which is all of the crazy headlines that we have going on. And let me tell you something. Why don't you pause this video? Because you're going to go ahead and go get your tinfoil hat today, because with what I got to share, you're going to need it. So press pause, go get your hat, and I'll see you back in a second. All right, before we jump into the content that has got the tinfoil hat out today, I want to make sure that you know a couple of things. So the first thing is that if you like this video and you're loving the stuff that I'm doing on this channel, I'm going to ask that you would smash that like button, you would drop a comment below and share this video, because what that does is it tells YouTube that you like what I'm doing here and they need to send it out to more people. And as you know, censorship is a real thing. So anytime that creators can help get seen by people like you sharing our stuff, it helps us immensely, more than we can even express. So thank you in advance for doing that. Second to that, if you want to follow me on things that are going on a day-to-day basis besides stuff that's just a weekly update that I do, the best network to find me on is Instagram. I am active in stories pretty much daily over there, other than about one day a week, along with the fact that I'm constantly ranting about something, sharing about my 5 cats, of course. They're my pride and joy. Along with I have a lot of content that goes over there daily. I do have TikTok, I have Rumble, I have Facebook, but basically Instagram's the big hub, and everything just kind of gets flooded over to those other networks from Instagram. Now, if you want the down and dirty stuff that I cannot talk about here due to censorship, you're going to want to check out my Patreon. I like to call it Too Hot for TV. And the reason I do that is because the things that we are talking about in my community on Patreon is the stuff that will really get me censored on here that I have to be very, very careful about. So if you want to know more about that, you can check it out in the description box. Every link that I have for anything that I'm involved with is all down in this description box below. And I think that about is it for those announcements. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump into the craziness that is the headlines for this week. Now, it's been a crazy week, no doubt, but I told you guys last week that I really wanted to focus on the coming eclipse, which is Monday, April the 8th. And of course, we would have just a banger week with the earthquakes that have been in Taiwan. I can tell you my phone has been lighting up since that first big earthquake. I think it was like a 7.0, 7.2, something like that. In Taiwan, my phone has been lit up all week long. And today it was going off. It's several days later. I know there's lots of devastation going on over there. Not only that, we had Israel bombing the Iran consulate in Damascus. I had a lot of people messaging me on, I think it was Monday. Oh my gosh, have you seen that? No, I hadn't. I was actually working my other job, and I was like, no, I'll have to check that out later. So we had that. The bird flu has shown up again, and that seems to be something that is getting a lot of attention right now with livestock and everything else. So that's been fun. And then, of course, what interested me yesterday was one of the Cohen kiddos that is now getting some attention from the Temple Institute, because he is officially ready to perform the red heifer ceremony. Like, what? So we've been following all this stuff for a long time. Now, the hard part here is that, like I said, I told you last week, I wanted to focus on all of the crazy things that are kind of circling and encompassing the eclipse next week. So if you want to see some of the stuff about Israel and the Cohen kiddo and what else, the earthquakes in Taiwan, you'll have to go down into the description box and just click on those links and check out those news articles for yourself. I don't have the time to go into that because there's so much going on here. So onward to the coming apocalypse. Oops, I mean eclipse. You know that was intentional. Before we get started on those items, I do want to be very clear about this eclipse. Now, I know I'm wearing the tinfoil hat today, and it's mainly for a joke, okay? But you'll see why I put it on, of course, when I go into some of these things. But I want to be really clear that I don't really believe that this eclipse is prophetic in nature. There's a lot of chatter going on in the community that I spend a lot of time in, which is just the Bible prophecy community. Everybody's watching everything. I love it. It's so cool to see so many people so active in this community. But here's the thing, there's no chapter and verse for this event. Now, I know a lot of people are tying it to Jonah. There's just a lot of things that people are trying to tie it to. And there's been some really interesting videos, and I always enjoy checking out everybody's content on stuff. But what I mean when I say that there's no chapter and verse is simply that we can't look to it and we can't just say, oh, that is this chapter, this verse, and this book. Meaning, if Damascus was destroyed overnight, we could literally look to that and point to Isaiah 17. We would know, like, that is a prophetic element filled right there. Same thing with, and I think this war is after the rapture, but there's lots of debate for it. If we started to see, Russia and Iran and Turkey all invading Israel, and then a few of these other nations going, oh no, leave her alone, we would know that's Ezekiel 38. We could point to the book, the chapter, and the verse. This eclipse is not that, okay? Yes, it's rare. There's a lot of crazy things that are surrounding it, but there is no chapter and verse that we can point to and say that this is the eclipse. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about the sun, moon, and stars and that God uses signs of the heavens. He does. But a lot of that stuff, when we kind of look into it, it really is centered around the tribulation and the second coming. And that's where I feel like we can get a little off in the weeds. So again, I could be wrong. This could totally be prophetic in nature. But the thing that I have to ask is simply this. What's the giveaway or the deadline to know when it is? If it is something that is prophetic, can somebody give me a deadline to go by this date? We should know this. Well, nobody has that because it's not that. Yes, what's going on is rare. I can't remember. I should have probably written it down in my notes, but how long it's been since this has happened. I know we had the one in 2017, and I know it's making an X, but it's really kind of cool. It's interesting, but it's definitely not something that we can point to a specific passage in the word and say, guys, this is prophecy beginning to happen. For those of us watching Bible prophecy, we are looking for those big events. Damascus, we're looking at, we're seeing the setup of Ezekiel 38 like crazy. With all of that said, I do find a lot of things about the timing around this eclipse that have really piqued my interest. There's lots of happenings around this event, and that's really what I wanted to focus on today. So I got a lot of notes here. I've got some articles I'm going to click on and read some blips to you. Let's jump in. So CERN. CERN. Man, in this field, everyone is talking about CERN. We've been talking about it for a long time. CERN has decided that they're going to go ahead and test their powerful particle accelerator during the eclipse next week, and they're searching for invisible matter, okay? For those that don't know what CERN is, I pulled this off of their website. I think it's really just base, you'll see when I read it. The CERN accelerator complex is a succession of machines with increasingly higher energies. Each machine accelerates a beam of particles to a given energy before injecting the beam into the next machine in the chain. The next machine brings the beam to an even higher energy, and so on. Yeah, that really doesn't tell you anything. So here's what I wrote. Essentially, CERN is trying to tear the veil between our world and the interdimensional world. Their goal is to hunt for dark matter and open up a portal. So here's what I want you to think. If you're a Stranger Things fan, that's what I want you to think about. Or if you've watched the show The Flash on CW, that's what I want you to think about. That's what the collider is, okay? So who knows what's really going to happen on Monday? Probably nothing, probably be nothing. But I do find it strange that they are messing with these forces that God never intended for us to be messing with. And I think it's very dangerous. And if you haven't noticed, and I'm sure all of you watching this channel certainly have because you're following other things, the veil is thinning. That is exactly why we are seeing so many interdimensional things happening now. That's why we're seeing the visibility of, the interdimensional beings that the world calls aliens. That's why people are seeing a lot more sightings of cryptids and all of these different creatures. That's why all of this stuff is happening, because the veil is getting very, very thin, and that is definitely a sign of the times. So let me click on this article real quick. Okay, here's what I wanted to read to you. So this is down in the article, and again, I'll try to remember to link all this stuff down in the description description box for you so that you can click on it yourself and read it if you want to. But I'm just kind of like midway down. It says, scientists turned on the particle machine this month, injecting it with several proton beams. CERN researchers use protons due to them being heavier particles. The weight allows much lower energy loss per turn through the accelerator than other particles like photon. On March 8th, teams from around the world waited inside the underground lab for a glimpse at the beam circling inside the ring of the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. I always say Hadron Collider. The circular shape was by design, as it allows for more time to accelerate the beam of particles so higher energy can be reached. But the first attempt this month did not go as planned after the beam only made it partially around. This is why I was saying to look at The Flash. Like, if you've ever watched the show The Flash, it's actually a really cool show on CW, despite the different occult. Yes, we can talk about that in another video. But as far as, like, it's really cool. So you can kind of, like, if you ever just watch the first show, you can kind of get an idea of, like, seeing this in real life, what they're doing. It says, but this month's experiments proved the beam trajectory was off as it did a complete full circle. So in other words, the first attempt didn't go as planned, but this one, they needed to do a full circle, and it did complete a full circle. After tinkering with the mechanics, the team watched in wonder as the beam circled the accelerator in less than 20 minutes. At full power, trillions of protons will race around the LHC accelerator ring 11,245 times a second and travel just 7 miles per hour, less than the speed of light. On April 8th, the team will send the beams through the tunnel where they will collide. The team is on the hunt for dark matter, which makes up around 28% of our massive universe, but has never been seen or proven. The work will give them insights into the formation of the universe and even its ultimate fate. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Revelation tells us its ultimate fate. Just a shot in the dark, y'all. Okay. So anyway, it says the experiment is scheduled to occur the same day as the Great North American Solar Eclipse. So I found that really interesting that they are firing that up. So let's go on to the next thing. There's a reason I've put all these in this particular order. NASA. I have my own thoughts about NASA. We'll leave them off this video. But they are launching 3 different rocket ships to study the eclipse on Monday. NASA is preparing to launch 3 giant rockets toward the sun on the same day that the massive hot ball of light will appear to millions of people in North America. They wrote that sentence wrong. To be fully eclipsed by the moon. I had to fix it for them. Most sky gazers will be eagerly awaiting the moment on Monday, April 8th, when the moon completely blocks the sun's disk, ushering in those precious few moments of totality, whereby darkness falls and the sun's outermost layer, the corona, becomes visible. But keen observers in Virginia, or those just tuning into NASA's online live stream, may also catch those rockets thundering into outer space on their way to the moon's shadow. Fear not, the U.S. Space Agency isn't launching any sort of attack against the sun, but rather is hoping to gather some valuable scientific data about how the solar eclipse alters the Earth's upper atmosphere. So I find that very interesting that NASA is also deciding to do something the same day. And then the third thing that is kind of just this whole like piece of space is the Devil's Comet is going to be visible as well. And here is a little blip from this article. A horned comet may be visible during the 2024 total solar eclipse. An unusual horned comet is now visible in the night sky and may even make a rare appearance during the total solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024. It says comet, and then it gives its name, can currently be seen in the night skies of the northern hemisphere. Comets composed of dust, rock, and ices heat up and expel gas when their orbits bring them closer to the sun, creating a glowing halo around the comet itself known as a is that comma or coma? Either one. Outbursts observed from the comet give it a horn-like appearance, earning its nicknames such as Devil Comet and also Millennium Falcon for all of you fans out there. So it's really interesting again that this is just another, it's just another thing that all of these news media sources, all of these agencies, if you will, are talking about within the sun, moon, and stars. And there's a reason I'm mentioning that. So just, you know, put a pin in that. We're going to come back to it. The next piece of craziness that is happening kind of around this time is the cicadas. My goodness, if you live in the Midwest like I do, may the Lord help us all as the plagues of Egypt completely just take over the Midwest. let's talk a little bit about this article here. All right, here's what it says. A double emergence of periodical cicadas isn't Cicada-Geddon, as in like it is Armageddon. It's a marvel. So the U.S. will see 2 adjacent broods of periodical cicadas emerge this spring. Last spring and early summer in the forests of the eastern half of the U.S. Have been eerily quiet for the past 2 years. In most years, long-lived periodical cicadas thrum through the region, but a quirk of timing means these insects have been sparse since 2021. This year, though, straighten your hat out, they're roaring back. That's because 2024 will see 2 separate batches of these cicadas emerge, and they're going to spread across most of the eastern half of the United States. These insects crawl out of the ground, which is just gross to me, and that also reminds me of Revelation, but not that it's the same, but it does remind me of that. They crawl out of the ground once every 13 or 17 years for a rush of mating and egg laying until all the adults die and the next generation is tucked underground until their own teenage years. It's unusual, but an ancient life cycle that has become part of the fabric of the eastern United States forest, and it will be on full display this spring with both a 13-year brood and a 17-year brood emerging across adjoining territories, a particularly rare occurrence. Now, what's odd, and I'll throw up the map here, is you can see where these cicadas are really going to merge at. It's mainly in Illinois, but we're in Missouri, so we're going to see quite a few of them. But I really feel sorry for all of you guys who are in Illinois. It is probably going to be really loud here over the next few weeks as these cicadas emerge. Okay, so here's where I kind of wanted to drive all of this home at. So the odd part about this eclipse is that we have states declaring states of emergency. That's oddity 1. We have states asking for donations of blood. That's oddity 2. HAARP is going to be active studying the ionosphere. If you don't know anything about HAARP, please go do some digging off of Google, but go look into HAARP, okay? That's all I can say here. As well as the National Guard has been activated, along with, here's the other one, Bill Gates, and George Soros are going to be putting their fake clouds with dust in the sky next week at some point as well. It's a lot of stuff just like coming around this one date. And again, I want to talk about why I think that is. But first, we have the state of emergency. So I know there's Ohio, there's Indiana. I haven't heard anything about Missouri. There's some, Niagara Falls has declared a state of emergency, which is weird. Parts of Texas, certain counties in Texas have. I don't know about any other places. If you know of some, you could drop them in the comments. So that's weird. The blood donations, I was searching online for like just one main article about this, but this is what was so weird. It's like every news outlet from each county, state, wherever it is, because you know how it is, there's local news stations for, you know, wherever you live, you have a local hub of news, right? If you live somewhere else, they have a local hub. They all pretty much say the same thing. It's, right? Is it weird? No, probably not. But here's what it says. This is the one it's from Ohio, Dayton. Urgent and immediate. Projected eclipse blood shortage prompts call for donations. And there's a whole article here that is just all about blood donation. It's very odd to me. So there's that. And then if you go into the Google search and just pulled up, like I said, all of these different news articles that really just read the same way. So I found that weird. Now, Gates and Soros. Okay, so let me click on this article. Bill Gates' dark dream of blocking sunlight from the earth is about to be realized, okay? So scientists plan to begin pumping chemicals into the sky over the next few weeks and months from several countries around the world, including the US, Australia, and Israel. The idea, promoted by none other than Bill Gates himself and leftist billionaire George Soros, involves pumping man-made white clouds containing chalk dust into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight away from the Earth's surface. How many of you are excited about that? Let me adjust my head. This article just goes on to talk about that. Now, there is just talk about when they're going to do this, but from what I heard on a few different podcasts this week, it is going to be this coming week. So again, is it going to be Monday? I don't know, maybe. But the weird thing about it is that so far the news forecasts, and again, this is why I'm saying do some research on HAARP and some of these other weather mods that are out there. Half of the eclipse is going to be hidden by clouds. So it is interesting to note that if these guys do decide to go ahead and blast their dust clouds into our atmosphere, who's going to really know what's going on? Because we're not, you can't see out my window, but it's cloudy here today. It might be cloudy. So now we're kind of getting into what I kind of wanted to bring my thoughts together. This is why I wanted to wait and just do a main video about all of these things. So here's my thought, and this is what I wrote. My big thought in all these things is that a lot of what is going on most likely is related to the occult, okay? CERN and NASA have occultists all in their organizations, and occultists are absolutely obsessed with the sun, moon, and stars. And a lot of rituals take place during events involving the sun, moon, and the stars. So I have no doubt that some of this is on purpose. And at this time, with the particular eclipse occurring at this time, I think that they planned it that way. So I can't say a whole lot about these organizations on here due to censorship, but there's a lot more here than I can really talk about. And I just find all of that. That's why I got out my tinfoil hat today, because it's perplexing to me that you've got, again, we have occultists in all areas that are really driving home that they're trying to get the world in a particular place so that one man can rise to power. And man, are they gunning for it at every single turn. And it seems like every single week, it's just like, it is like, you know, left hook, right hook, jab. It's just the amount of news stories that are coming out are out of control. And again, as I said to you guys earlier, I wanted to do this video today just based on the stuff coming out around this eclipse, but we even had so much stuff happen this week. I was going back and forth with myself. Do I talk about Taiwan? Do I talk about Israel? Do I have to tie all this in? I'm like, well, I got to mention it because it's a big deal. So the last thing that I want to say is that with what happened with Israel striking the Iran consulate in Damascus earlier this week, there's a lot of talk about Iran striking Israel. It's very high. Like this, there's warnings coming out. And again, could this be fear tactics? Sure. But we all know that all of the whole World War III scenario, it's a powder keg. It is an absolute powder keg. But they are talking about striking in the next couple of days. And after what happened in Damascus this week, you know, they're going to retaliate. It's just a matter of when. Now, the conversations that I have heard this week and that I've listened to with news sources have talked a lot about nuclear war. And that's the part for me that's very troubling. Because again, while none of the stuff that we talked about today is chapter and verse for Bible prophecy, unless your head is buried in the sand and you don't have a clue of what's really going on, it is all lending to one like juncture. It's coming to a point, okay? So as I do every week, my question for you as a viewer, if you're watching this, is simply this: where do you stand with Jesus and understanding who he is and what he did for you? Because figuring that out is going to be the most important decision you'll ever make in your entire life. This is about your eternity. It's more important than who you're going to marry, how many kids you're going to have, what career you're going to go after, if you're going to retire on the beaches of Florida. The decision you make about Jesus and who he is one of the most life-changing, and when I say life-changing, I really mean eternal life-changing decisions that you will ever make. And time is really running out to make that decision before all of this comes to a head and the church is plucked out and the final 7 years begins with the signing of the peace treaty in Daniel 9:27. So what I want to say to you is simply this, and I get this, you know, I can go back and forth with people all the time about this, but here's what I will say. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably heard me say this plenty of times in stories or on different reels. But if everything that I believe about Jesus, that, you know, he was born of a virgin, he came to earth, he lived sinless, and he died on a cross and suffered the most agonizing death to pay for our sins so that we could be grafted back into the family of God because it was usurped from us in the Garden of Eden. If all of that's true, untrue, if every bit of it is untrue, all the stuff that I'm talking about that's, you know, happening, that's lining up with the Bible, if all that's untrue, what have I lost by believing in it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But if it is true and you die without making that decision, without accepting that your sins were paid for you, that you don't have to pay for them yourself. And if you die without that, then you've lost everything. And I don't want that for you. I don't win any I don't win any crowns. We don't get 25 virgins when we get to heaven if you get saved because of this video. None of that happens for me. This is just me caring about your eternity and not wanting to A, see you left behind here if the rapture of the church happens before death for you. And B, wanting to see as many people as I possibly can rescued out of the clamp, the hands, the snatches that Satan has on everybody. And his whole goal is he still thinks he can win this thing. So he's trying to make sure that he can take as many people with him to come against Jesus. And it's a losing battle. And I don't want you to be on the losing side. So we'll wrap up this crazy tinfoil hat video today with one of my favorite scriptures, Titus 2:13, and let me read it so I don't mess it up. But we're looking for that blessed hope, the glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ, and that is at the rapture. And that day, it is almost here. So until next week, if we're still here, I'll see you then. Maranatha.